relationship counselor, Elizabeth Overstreet. Everyone has this vision in their mind of what marriage is, how romantic they want it to be, how they're going to raise their children, what the core values are going to be in their relationship. But often we don't tell each other totally what that vision is.
Excited to have our guest on tonight. He is on Instagram, and he gives really great advice about coaching. I mean, not coaching, but relationships and dating. And I think what I've liked, Matt, is that you keep it real. You're giving that male perspective, and you're calling out things a lot of times that people don't talk about on the male side. So we appreciate that knowledge. But welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And notice we didn't say Phife, so I don't want people thinking, Tribe Called Quest, Phifer. All right.
Yeah. People, growing up, because I grew up in the '90s, so people that was a nickname.
That would have been a great surprise, like if he would have busted out in a rap,
Just a freestyle.
No, I can't rap. I wish I could. I have a lot of talents, but that's not one of them.
Why don't you tell a little bit about yourself, about your background, and kind of how you came into this realm of, helping people in their relationships?
So I'm a therapist, coach, author. I wrote a book called are we allowed to swear here?
Well, we try to keep it family, but
okay.
if it's something relating to material,
So the name of the book is "Oh Shit, I Think They're a Fucking Narcissist" is the name of the book. So that's the reason why I asked, and so that's my book. But how I got into dealing with relationships is when my first gig out of school, when I finished my degree in clinical mental health counseling, was in substance use therapy, and what happened is that I was actually avoiding getting into substance use. A lot of people, I just didn't think it was going to be a great fit, and it actually ended up being a very good fit. And what happened is I've always wanted to work with relationships, and I didn't realize how much I was actually going to learn about relationships, in particular toxic relationships, when I was dealing with that. And so it was like drinking water from a fire hose, because what I found out, and what a lot of people find out when they work with me, is that when you're dealing with toxic relationships, it's the same part of the brain that deals with addiction. And so I learned a lot. And then you're also dealing with, obviously, people who are in relationships and dealing with their own chaos and their own drama. I obviously have been through my own situations as well. Then when I left traditional therapy, I became more of a traditional dating coach, like you see every day on social media. And I was invited to be a guest speaker on, some of you might be familiar with Fly Nubian Queen online. They're on Facebook and big on YouTube as well. And they invited me specifically to talk about toxic relationships one week. And all of this was knowledge that I had acquired, but I didn't realize that a lot of people actually needed it. And that video went viral, so they invited me back the following week, and I decided to kind of make it a thing, and here we are several years later.
Wow. I like what you said about like how toxic relationships could be similar to addiction. I don't think we call that out a lot. And there was something I was looking at within your content that I wanted to ask you about that, because you talk about the common reasons that people struggle with healing from a toxic relationship. And if you think about addiction issues, the reason it's a struggle is because that it's just normal to keep going towards a certain habit. It's hard to break a pattern. Sometimes there's just not an awareness around it. But can you delve a little deeper into kind of what you learned about why toxic relationships are addictive?
They're addictive because for several reasons. Number one, it starts out in childhood. When I meet with people, I tell people that the person that they left, because oftentimes they leave and they're like, I know this person was abusive. I know I shouldn't be with this person. But when they leave, and it's called a trauma bond, but that trauma bond, they miss them in an unhealthy way, almost like they're obsessed with this person. They can't sleep at night. Oftentimes they might go through sweat spells. And what that is it's actually withdrawal, the same way that someone who's suffering from a heroin addiction would go through withdrawal. And so it starts out in childhood. And what happens is that you're so used to catering to maybe a problematic parent, maybe an alcoholic parent, maybe you grew up in a domestic violent home, or you had a narcissistic parent, something along those lines. But long story short, there's a There's a quality about your family that has made you drawn to and you feel comfortable in chaos, and not only comfortable in chaos, but uncomfortable in peace. And so when you meet people, and you hear people say this all the time, that we don't have quote unquote chemistry, not realizing that chemistry is a red flag, not a green flag. So they're so drawn to someone that they don't even realize that it's reminding them of someone in their past, that they really should be hesitant of connecting to this person, because they're so drawn to that chemistry and the love bombing and what's happening during that process. And the reason why the chemistry is a red flag, not a green one, is that you're literally becoming addicted slowly but surely. And what happens is that you now put this person on a pedestal. You think this is the greatest guy, the greatest woman that you've ever met in your life, that they can't do anything wrong. Oh my goodness, the sex is so great, this and that. And you think this person is just absolutely amazing until something happens. Then all of a sudden, when the first time that they have road rage, they scream at you, they hit you. But because you have that person on a pedestal, the same way that someone who struggles with heroin addiction, I'm going to talk about heroin addiction briefly. The very first time that someone who struggles with heroin, whenever they use, the very first time that they use, they call it the most euphoric feeling that they've ever felt in their life. And when you think about people who, when they first meet someone and they're like, I think I found my soulmate, and I think I found this, and it's literally the same exact thing. And so what happens is that once that relationship starts to decline, instead of you actually placing blame and responsibility for their bad behavior, you think that there's something wrong with you. And so what happens is that instead of you saying like, hey, don't treat me this way, don't do this, you try to fix it because you think there's no possible way that someone that this perfect could be this bad. And you hear people say this at the end of a relationship like this as well. They'll say things like, I still see good in them. I can't believe that they're like this. And it just doesn't fathom that. And it's all the same thing, all addiction related.
And you're talking about in extreme cases, correct? Because
not necessarily.
Okay, so please clarify, because I know, and I like, it threw me off a little bit when you said that, chemistry, it actually puts up a red flag, and then you gave the reasonings as to why it puts up a red flag. Mm-hmm. And that makes a lot of sense. But on the flip side, so is chemistry a bad thing then if you feel, cohesive with someone?
So there's a big difference between chemistry and compatibility. What we're looking for is compatibility. Compatibility is something that matures and grows over time. So we do want compatibility. And, to your point, we don't want chemistry at like a level 10. We want chemistry at like a level 6 or 7. Like, yeah, I like this person, but I don't feel like you're not in a situation where, especially early on is what I'm talking about, where I feel like I can't live without them. That's where we start to get very problematic, where within the first couple of dates, for the first couple of weeks and months, where someone's like, I feel like I found my soulmate. They can't, they start to let go of a lot of things that they already have in life. You start to kind of notice that their work starts to decline. Oftentimes, even if they're a single parent, they start to not spend as much quality time with their kids, things that are very important to them, same way that someone is dealing with a real actual addiction. If you're able to, and of course, everyone's going to be excited when you very first meet someone. That's true of everybody. But when you're allowing for that relationship to build naturally and slowly over time, you're able to still maintain a healthy relationship and a healthy balance with the rest of your life, without feeling like this, like I'm going to lose this person if I don't give up everything else.